Okay, let's move on now to a flick through the international papers this Friday morning here in Paris. And we're joined for that on set once again by Solange Mougin. And Solange, you've been looking into Donald Trump's rather controversial proposals in the US that teachers there should now be armed to try and stop similar massacres happening like we saw in Florida last week.
Yeah, the idea of arming schools, of arming teachers is getting a lot of press in the U.S. and internationally. Let's start by taking a look at The Independent. It ran with the headline, "The National Rifle Association's answer to guns in schools is more guns in schools." Now, but more guns in schools may not be the right answer, according to the Palm Beach, Florida paper, The Sun Sentinel. It explains that there was actually a police officer outside the school when the shooting occurred, but the deputy never went in. The police officer has since resigned, with many on social media calling him a coward.
And Solange, you've been finding out that many people in the US are deeply divided over this issue of gun control and Trump's idea that teachers should now be armed.
Yeah, so divided, in fact, that the National Review, which is a conservative conservative magazine, bi-monthly, conservative magazine, says that the gun issue is so charged with hate that both sides could lead to an actual civil war in the United States. Now, to help understand this pro-gun conservative perspective, let's take a look at an article in the Conservative Review that I think personally helps. It explains that the pro-gun advocates want to hold on to the ability to defend themselves, that they don't want to give up that right to the government. For them, it's a matter of liberty, just like free speech. Meanwhile, on the other end, more mainstream media is saying pretty much across the board that arming teachers is a very bad idea. The Daily Beast interviewed teachers, some of whom are actually former soldiers, and they said that they would quit their jobs if they have to be armed in the classroom. To illustrate the dangers of arming schools, here's a cartoon by Tom Tolles in the Washington Post, and it raises the issue of what if the teacher misses and hits a student, with the paper saying that this is actually a real risk because it frequently happens that even police officers who are trained sometimes hit bystanders, not to mention the other risks such as leaving your gun unattended or the possibility actually of teachers profiling minority students and threatening them with guns.
Okay, let's shift gears now to immigration reform here in France. On Wednesday, Emmanuel Macron's government announced their plan for stricter immigration and asylum rules. And Solange, the international press is now weighing in.
Yeah, and they're actually quite deeply divided on whether this plan is a good idea or not. Now, The Guardian has an op-ed that says Macron's reforms are brutal, that they are being put in place to win over voters, and that they are also actually deeply rooted in Macron's free market ideology or liberalism. The op-ed says that Macron's pushing for a greater division between the haves and the have-nots, and that immigrants and asylum seekers are in the have-nots category. But on the other end of the spectrum, the German weekly Der Spiegel says just the opposite, that Macron is pushing for a common European policy, and that is a good thing. That France still has a lenient policy compared to other countries, including Germany, and that Macron is going in the right direction by trying to get a sort of common EU ground.
Okay, let's move on now to Spain, Solange, where an art fair is making headlines because of its decision to take down one of the show's exhibits.
Yeah, the exhibit is called Political Prisoners in Contemporary Spain, and it shows the faces of a number of Catalan politicians, some of whom are in prison. Now, people are outraged that this art fair in Madrid decided to take down the photos just 40 hours after the exhibit was hung. The art fair said they did this because they feared it would distract from other works, but the fair later apologized among the outrage for the move. Now, El País explains that many see the decision as an act of censorship, and the Catalan paper La Vanguardia asks the same question. But they say that regardless of the hubbub over the actual work, which was estimated around 80,000 euros, it's now worth much more because the paper says that a powerful thing is going on when art and political activism coincide.
And Solange, very quickly, you have a final word on the Olympics and the sport of curling.
Yeah, but as BuzzFeed puts it, everyone is obsessed with curling and nobody knows why. The website has published a number of videos from across the world of people playing the sport at home with a vacuum cleaner, with bowls, with brooms, and there's even a video of a journalist who has, quote, caught the curling bug.
Solange Mougin with the International Press Review, thank you very much.